All right, our first lesson on attachment is going to be about mattress stitching two open-ended pieces together, open end to open end. And the biggest thing you want to make sure is that these are the same number of stitches around. So in this case, these are both 18 stitches around. And really, you're going to see this a lot with like doll heads, like when you make a really detailed doll head and you need to attach it to a neck. But otherwise, a lot of amigurumi tend to just attach open-ended parts to closed ones. But I wanted to start with this because this is a really great way to see the mattress stitch. And what the mattress stitch does is the mattress stitch is going to take our stitches that we used to sew this together, and it's going to hide them underneath and on the inside of the work. So you're going to be going underneath each stitch, which will put the piece of yarn that would show on the inside. And because of that, when you pull this tight, it's almost an invisible join, and it looks really nice on these open to open parts to use this mattress stitch. So that's what we're going to use to put these together. I bound off the tail on one side, and then I left the tail on the other side. So we're going to use the tail from the one that still has the tail to attach our open to open sides together. So first thing we're going to do is anywhere on this circle, because it doesn't really matter where these go, the first thing we're going to do is start by going in through one stitch and out through the next. Now, you can look at this as, in one, out the next one, or you can look at this as going behind this stitch here. However you want to look at it, as long as it accomplishes the same goal, that's all that matters. Whoa. So then we're going to hold our two pieces together here, and I'm not gonna hold these together perfectly close because I want us to be able to see what we're doing. So coming out of the same stitch that this is coming out of, so this is coming out of this stitch here, we're gonna go under this stitch, this next stitch, which means we're going to go in where we came out and come out the next stitch. So you can see how we're kind of behind that stitch now. And this is how this is going to go for this whole attachment. So we're going to go in our other side, we're going to go in through the stitch we were just out of and behind the next stitch. So come out from the next stitch. And what this is doing is hiding that yarn, that working yarn, on the inside of the attachment. So back in through the stitch we just came out of and up through the next one. Pull kind of sort of tight. And then let's move that little piece of stuffing down through this hole we just came out of and up through the next stitch. We're going to keep doing this all the way around. So I'm going to tighten this once so you can see this. So you pull this tight and you can see how nice and flush those stitches are that we just did. So let's keep going because this is looking pretty cool. So we got to go down through the stitch we just came out of, which is harder to see when you've pulled them tight. So can you see how it's kind of useful to leave this loose and then tighten, and then leave it loose and then tighten, and go around that way so that you can really see what you're doing. So we're going to go down through the stitch we came out of and up through the next stitch. Now it's really important that your pieces are understuffed when you have these two open sides. And the reason for that is because you can see already our stitching, or our needle wants to grab onto that stuffing and pull it out. So we need to be able to push that stuffing back inside and get it out of our way so that it doesn't pull out through the stitches. Another way to prevent that is to push your stuffing in with your finger, put your finger behind the work where you need to be working, and then insert your needle so that it can't possibly grab any stuffing with your finger in the way. So we can do that on the other side as well. So we're going to stick our finger in here, push the stuffing away from the stitch that we're working, go in through the stitch we just worked, out through the next one, and pull tight. Then on the other side, remove our stuffing away, down through the one we just came out of, up through the next. Let's see if I can do it with this finger. Oh yeah, that works. Down through the one we just came out of, and up through the next. All right, and let's pull those few stitches tight. So look how pretty this is looking. Isn't that nice? Nice and smooth and even with that tiny piece of stuffing. So let's keep going on our attachment. We're going to go down through the stitch we came out of and up through the next. Move our stuffing. Go down through the stitch we came out of and up through the next. And this will feel like you're going behind your stitches, but that's the idea. Because what this is doing is it's smooshing the face of the tops of these stitches together. So they're going face to face, so you can see it like that. They're smushing face to face like this, and that is holding them tighter, and it's also hiding that entire top of the stitch underneath your attachment so that it looks cleaner and nicer on these open to open attachments. So look at that. Isn't that pretty? So here's our open side. Here's our closed side. All right, and we've been fighting with our stuffing quite a bit. Make sure you're just barely putting that needle under the fabric so that you can make absolutely sure that you're not grabbing stuffing. Okay, we're gonna keep going. And we're almost 3/4 of the way around. And that's where we are going to stop and do something else. So there's a good section of what that looks like. I'm going to pull it tight. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. So we're a little less than 3/4 of the way around. Let's just do 1 or 2 more. And then we're going to stuff these pieces the rest of the way. So these are very understuffed pieces so that we can push that stuffing out of the way. So if these were like super stuffed, it would be really hard to push that stuffing out of the way. But because they are slightly understuffed, we were able to push that away fairly easily. Okay, so pull that tight. And we're going to use this last little opening that is our like 1/4 of the way around to add our extra stuffing. So grab my big stuffing bin here. And in very, very small pieces, so like we're using a little bit of stuffing, we're not using a huge chunk. We're going to add to one side and then the other, making sure we tuck all that stuffing in there. Get out another small piece, knead it so there's no lumpy parts, and stuff that in there. And now we can just keep stuffing until this is as full as we want it to be. We knead our stuffing so there's no lumps. We stuff it in as far as we can reach. Making sure we stuff all the way around because this is the shape of our whole big piece. Now, make sure you stuff back toward where you already attached. So, see how I was getting a nice round edge here where I was stuffing, but this is still all flat and smushed? So, we need to make absolutely sure that we're taking pieces of stuffing and going all the way across to our bottom piece where the attachment was previously also. Alrighty. Actually, I want to put in one more little blob. And then I think I'm happy with that stuffing. So make sure you stuff all your stuffing in so there's no little threads showing out. And actually, I think I can get just a little more in there. I am a very firm stuffer, so I really like to make sure that my stuff is well stuffed because there's nothing worse than having floppy pieces. And your attachments can be perfect, but if your stuffing isn't firm and isn't done well around your attachments are still going to sag. So since we're trying to avoid that, all right, we're going to keep going. So here was our stitch that we were working on. Whoops, and I grabbed a little stuffing. So this is another good spot to use your finger behind it. So we can't grab our stuffing. Down through the one we just worked, up through the next. Down through the one we just worked and up through the next. And we can about close this up. Down through the one we just worked. Our up through the next is the very last stitch where our stitch came out originally. Oh, I'm trying to make sure I don't get any stuffing. There we go. And that will come out through the very first stitch that we put into the big side. All right, so pull tight our whole attachment. There we go. Pull our extra stuffing away, and there you have it. Our beautiful mattress stitch attachment. Look how nice that looks. And you can see how it just bumps these two rows up together real nice. It bumps them up together a lot nicer than, say, just a color change would on that round. And so sometimes this is beneficial if you're trying to do really stiff color changes, or like I was saying, you're trying to add a doll head onto a body or something like that. So there is your open end to open end attachment. Thanks for watching a Hook by Kati tutorial video. Please click subscribe and click that little bell so you get notifications every time I post a new video. And remember to go to hookbykati.com for more patterns, tutorials, and guides to help you improve your art.